in and around Ocala. Plus, of course, a splash of sports as well. Now, here's your host, Tom.
Good Friday morning. Welcome to Ocala Talks. It is a Friday, a beautiful sunny Friday here in the Brick City, beautiful Ocala, Florida. I'm coming to you from the palatial studios of WOCA Radio, located just off the runway at the Ocala International Airport. Joe Biden addressed the nation yesterday in his peak time because made sure he was in the peak time. And I'm sorry, doesn't he just look more and more like Walter from the Jeff Dunham skits? I think he does. I think he does. Joining us on the radio as he does every morning is Galen. You know him from Life South. Galen, I just, now every time I see him, all I can think of is Walter from Jeff Dunham.
Yeah, and you can't get that image out of your
head
once you've seen it. And it's, and again, so here's my whole issue, right? You know, I think we had a pretty good discussion when you allow me to talk.
Well, that's yesterday. By the way, real quick, the emails came in. People agreed with you. People agreed with me. But the most important, my wife said, "Shut up, Tom. Let Galen talk more."
Well, and again, I think but I think it's okay to have a argument or a discussion. It's the only way you can find the truth.
A lively discussion.
But I think we can both agree on this, right? So all of these so-called sanctions that they already put on the table for the Russians up to 2 weeks ago, right? Biden said, this is what I'm going to do. And they're like, oh, this is going to hurt them. Like, you don't think the Russian oligarchs and these tech wizards who are hacking our companies aren't smart enough to get around these sanctions? I mean, really, come on. If you gave my son 15 minutes, he could figure out how to do that.
So what you're saying then is, in layman's terms, is all those sanctions and $1.19 will get you a cup of coffee at Wawa.
And here's the one that, and I read this late last night. The one that made me the most upset, right, is Biden is not embargoing Russian oil and gas to the U.S. because he doesn't want to hurt the U.S. economy.
Right.
Now, let me ask you this, Tom. What's the number one exporter for Russia in all the world?
It's gas.
Oil and gas.
Oil and gas, yeah.
So
it's the only thing that would hurt him. It's the only thing that would hurt him.
Right. And so because of polls, right, and because of the politics involved, the one thing that we could do to hurt Russia is and by the way, in the same breath, Biden also said he's not opening up his own reserve, our reserves here, or not he's going to open up our reserves, but not open up more oil wells and gas, right? That's off the table. So, the one thing that we could do to hurt Putin, we're not going to do.
And then,
you know how you said everything's on the table? For
it's
Biden,
not. Yeah.
Nothing is on the table. And that goes to show you where we're at.
And here's what gets me.
And again, we're not even launching drones or anything.
Here's what gets me. Is the president said yesterday that, he doesn't want to hurt the American people, and he knows we're hurting at the gas pump. And he throws out what his folks tell him to throw out, alternative fuel sources. And we just had, at the top of the hour here, we just had a Farm and Ranch, the Florida Ag News, talk about how ethanol gas might be the answer. But last week, the University of Nebraska, one of the universities put out a study that says ethanol gas adds more carbon footprint to the environment than any other fuel that there is.
Sure.
So which is it, Joe? Are you going to give us alternative fuel so we get ethanol, or are we going to do climate change so we can't have ethanol?
Well, and again, the rare earth minerals and things that make the batteries that we're using.
Lithium.
They're all in the Ukraine.
Yes, the Ukraine and China.
They're in the Ukraine. I mean, and then you have John Kerry, right? Who was almost president, by the way. Let's think about that. He comes out and says, I hope that Putin sticks to his promise to help prevent climate change. He's invading another country.
He could care less about climate. His carbon footprint right now is diesel fuel running tanks.
I mean, when you say that, like, John Kerry is not a dumb man, right? I think he's insulated in a bubble and only hears what he wants to hear. But when that comes out of your mouth, and you're watching the images that are coming out of the Ukraine, right? The fires, right? The missiles that are striking, the explosions, the massive carbon that's coming out. And John Kerry thinks, you know what's right now? We need to think about climate change. Go tell that to the people in the Ukraine that, well, look, we can't really help you because we need that oil and gas from Russia, which is fueling your tanks, right? Our money is allowing the Russians' army to get bigger because, well, we don't want to drill in the U.S. because of climate change. Do these people realize how dumb they are? Like at a common sense level.
The largest shale oil deposits in the world are underneath the soil of the U.S. We have deposits of oil, natural gas and everything. We got all kind of natural resources here that because we want to protect the horny-toed frog, I guess, or something, I don't know, we can't drill.
Well, let me ask you this.
The caribou may bump its head on a pipeline, so we can't run a pipeline.
And my son, when I told him this, and he's getting a degree in chemical engineering at Florida State. He's much smarter than me. I said, son, this is what I want you to do. You have the resources. I said, I want you to find out how long it takes oil to actually be produced. Because what we've always been told, and they call it a fossil fuel.
Because it's dinosaurs. Right? We're going to run out because it took that long.
No,
I know it's not.
Dinosaurs.
I know it's not.
It's organic matter.
Right.
Right? So the question is how long does it take to actually make? Right? At one point they thought it was millions of years. They think that some of the oil we could tap into is from the 1700s.
Right, 300-400 years old.
So again, that's pretty damn renewable to me, Tom.
If you could do it every 300-400 years, that's kind of renewable.
Abundant. That's why they keep finding these new oil reserves. It's an abundant thing, and I'm just amazed that we bought in to this. Oil is bad. Oil is the engine that's driven the American economy since the 1700s.
It replaced coal. Coal drove the American economy before oil, but oil replaced coal and has driven the American economy ever since.
And I think the biggest problem with coal is how we get it, right? The mining of it, the fact that it still takes people and it still causes a lot of death when you're getting it. Oil doesn't do that, right? Oil is a much safer, and it burns better. It's much more efficient. But instead, again, look at what it takes.
Galen, but windmills are so nice.
Oh my, they're not. You've never been near one.
Oh, I've seen the monstrosity. I've seen the monstrosity between the city of Atlantic City and the airport of Atlantic City, where they have hundreds of tall windmills just dotting the skyline. It's hideous. You want to talk about ugly?
Oh. And again, you know what? An oil rig, at least if it's in the Gulf, I can go fish it.
Right. Yeah, but if that oil rig blows up, though, the oyster mind you, the oyster industry in Florida is just coming back from a deficit that it hit 11, 12 years ago from the Deepwater Horizon blowing up. But I mean, that happens so very few, so infrequently that I think it's a risk we should take.
Well, and it's also one hurricane, it's one tornado, it's one earthquake, right? I mean, stuff's going to happen, but we have to continue to live and we have to continue to strive. And I'm a big believer that oil is going to be here forever. ever. Right now, we know we have at least 300 years of reserves of oil.
Just us.
At today's consumption.
Just us.
Well, no, in the world, right? I'm pretty sure we can figure it out. In 300 years, maybe we can figure out fusion or fission or something else. But, right now, we were oil dependent 2 years ago. And now Russia just invaded another country, and we're against, apparently, right? Publicly, Biden's pretty against it. He's just not willing to go far enough. And even I'm willing to, and you and I don't agree on how far we should go, but both of us agree we should go
farther than Biden is.
Their oil.
Right, farther than Biden is.
Let's ban their oil. Can we agree on that, Tom?
Yes,
Can we agree on that?
Yeah, do not take any oil from Russia. I right now, I will make this statement. I would rather have to endure the pain of $6 a gallon gas than to take oil from Russia.
And I think if you ask most Americans if that was the reason, they would say, okay.
Yes, because it would stop this idiocracy that's going on over there, because you'd hit them in the wallet. The only place you hit somebody's in the wallet. Other than that, and hitting them and doing these sanctions that we've done isn't hitting Russia in the wallet. We got to take a break.
No,
when we come back,
bank account. By the way, Idiocracy, underrated movie. When
we come back, I got to ask you: is it the start of this or is it the start of that? We'll get Galen's opinion next, right here on Ocala Talks, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, WOCA, The Source.
Are you or your loved one being released from a hospital and wondering how you'll manage? Inform your physician that you want to go to Palm Garden of Ocala at 2700 Southwest 34th Street for your rehabilitation. Palm Garden provides pain management, post-discharge follow-up, diabetic care, psychosocial support, and so much more. Plus, they even offer outpatient rehab. This award-winning care facility has a team of licensed professionals dedicated to enhancing your independence. Call 352-854-6262 today.
Hi, this is JP from Penn Flooring here in Ocala. I would like to invite you to come in and visit our spacious showroom where we have solutions for every style and budget. From wall-to-wall carpet to hardwood floors and tiles, we have an unsurpassed selection of flooring. At Penn Flooring, we've provided quality customer service with a family touch for over 25 years. Visit our website at pennflooring.com or come by our showroom, 1201 Southwest 17th Street, just over the bridge. Penn Flooring, quality customer service with a family touch.
You know what you want to do in retirement, but do you know how to get there? Tune in to Coasting into Retirement with Gary Marriage of Nature Coast Financial Advisors, Sunday mornings at 8 to get answers to your retirement planning questions. Plan today so you can do the things you've always dreamt about doing in retirement. Listen Sunday mornings at 8 to Coasting into Retirement with Gary Marriage of Nature Coast Financial Advisors.
Our firm offers insurance services.
Are you wasting time boxing up packages and going to the post office or the UPS store? Are you tired of not knowing what you'll pay when you get there? Just Ship offers pickup service and flat rate packaging and postage rates, which takes the guesswork out of shipping while saving you time and money. So quit wasting valuable time and money. Call or text Just Ship at 352-234-3840. That's 352-234-3840. Just Shipped.
Now you've done it. Have you lost your mind? He's back. And you're listening again. A legend in his own mind. Don't believe me? Just ask him. Here's Tom Schmitz live on WOCA. The Source.
Welcome back to Ocala Talks on a Friday. Galen, from Life South joins us. He does every day. Brought to you by the good folks at Penn Flooring, Palm Garden Health and Rehabilitation Center, and JustShip.net. Galen, yesterday I tried to draw the analogy, much to the chagrin of you, of the 1930s versus the 2020s. You were having none of it. So I went home and I with an open mind, I said, maybe let me see if Galen has any standing in the points he was trying to make. And so I did some study, looking around and stuff, did some studying, talked to a friend of mine, Chuck Thomas, who's a professor of war and history at Georgia Southern, and did some looking around at different articles from around the world. And I came up with, another analogy, and I know where I'm going with this one, is this the start of World War III, or is this a beginning of another Cold War? And when I asked that question, I wanted to think, and then I stopped myself and I said, here's Galen's point, and it became crystal clear to me. Don't try to label it. Let it be what it is, a moment in time in 2022 when Russia has invaded a country next to it that it doesn't recognize as a country, and the world is responding to that aggression. And it can't be a Cold War. It can't be World War III. It could be World War III eventually, but it's its own entity that doesn't need to be labeled with a comparison in history. And the reason why I came up with that understanding is when somebody said, I was talking to Chuck Thomas, and I go, it's almost like the Cold War started again. Chuck Thomas goes, that's impossible. The Cold War had two superpowers, the Soviets and the Americans. Now you have the Chinese. You have the Soviets. You have India, who has a bomb, Japan, who has technology. There's a whole lot more players on the world than just two superpowers, and so you can't label it. You just have to let it play out. I think that was the point you were trying to make to me yesterday.
Well, yeah, and again, I think you have to take all of these decisions isolated in the time that you're living in. You look, we just got out of Afghanistan, and that was a complete train wreck.
After Russia had been there but 20 years before us in a complete train wreck.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we were in, there was no time in which, well, I guess that's not true. There was a very short time in the 12 years or whatever it was, 20 years we were in Afghanistan that it was even under control, right? 20 years we were there, and maybe out of that, a year was good. And then we pulled out, it became a complete and utter disaster again. And we're not good at nation building. And no country is. Nobody has figured out how to build another nation. The only way you can be is organically and from the people. And we have to at some point, we have to let the Ukrainian people decide if they want to be Russian, or if they want to be Ukrainian, or if they want to be Ukrainian inside the USSR, under that umbrella and that protection. And that's a fact. Again, our country, granted, was a completely different time, completely different era, but we did want our own freedom. We wanted it, at least the people who wanted it. And then we got help from other countries, but it was very isolated. The French gave up to a certain point, right? We can do all that.
And we had the advantage. We had the advantage of a separation of an entire ocean too. That helped a lot in the gaining of American freedom.
Absolutely, and it took 3 to 4 weeks, and sometimes months, to get across, right? And then once you got here, you still had to march to the battlefield. Yeah, it's a big difference. But the Ukrainian people have to, at some point, stand up for themselves and show the rest of the world that we want this and we deserve this. And I know that sounds terrible, but that's just where I'm at. They have to be willing to shed their own blood before we shed our blood.
What do you make of what do you make last night? And social media last night was ablaze. And I was surprised Russia didn't cut the social media feed that was showing live the thousands of people that took to the streets of St. Petersburg, that took to the streets of Moscow in defiance of this war or this invasion of Ukraine. I expect I know it's an invasion. It's an occupation, whatever you want to say. But I was surprised that not only did that many people go out into the streets of Russian cities to protest, but that the Kremlin didn't put the protest down real quick, and that they allowed social media to show it all.
No, because this, in Putin's mind, it's like, look, I can allow people to do this. It has no impact on Putin. Have you seen this man?
No, I know.
He's a cyborg. He has no feelings. He was a former operative, a secret agent. He has no feelings. He knows what it's going to take. And he also knows, and those people of St. Petersburg know, that this could be put down in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. Now, let's compare that to what's going on here in America with this trucker convoy that's currently in Arizona, and is going to hit D.C. next Wednesday, right, for the State of the Union, and how we're responding to that, how we're here in a country where we'll have a right to bear arms and a right to assemble and a right to free speech. And it sounds like Biden and the National Guard in Washington, D.C. is going to do everything it can to prevent these individuals from doing that very thing. It's going to be fascinating. The next week's going to be fascinating. So
this convoy, and I saw some photos in Arizona of the convoys that rolled by, and the droves of people that were standing roadside cheering for this.
Absolutely.
I mean,
yeah.
this convoy. You think this convoy, is going to have some support? It's already got thousands and thousands of people supporting it in Arizona before it's even come cross country. You're going to see pictures.
Yeah.
You're going to see I envision that we will see photos and pictures of people standing on overpasses and all like you hadn't seen since the O.J. Simpson chase.
Well, they got 1,500 trucks right now, so you can do a little nod to C.W. McCall. But they have 1,500 trucks now, and they're just going to pick up more and more as they cut across the United States. Started in California with about 500 trucks, and they're already at 1,500. So, and again, peaceful protests. They're not stopping anybody. They're not preventing anybody from doing what they want to do. They don't have any tractor trailers. It's just the semis. And let's see what happens. Again, I think it's going to be fascinating. And it's going to test this administration like it hasn't been tested before. Now, granted, they have failed every single test that they've been given. I think we can agree on that. Right?
Yes.
They have failed everything.
Well,
even Biden supporters agree.
Last night, I came across a quote from Ariel Braun. And I don't know who Ariel Braun is, except for that his credentials say he's a professor of international relations and political science at the University of Toronto. But I think it sums up this Russian thing very well. Unless we change our collective approach worldwide to Russia, we're not going to be able to stop this. It's likely to get worse. Not because Putin is some madman aggressor who wants to conquer countries all over the world and rule the world, but because he's an opportunist who will take whatever he can if he sees weakness. And that's what he's seeing right now.
I agree with all that. My question's still the same. How? How are you going to stop them? That's all. Show me a plan that's going to stop
just have
them.
to.
I'm sorry.
By the way,
sanctions aren't getting it done.
By the way, don't show weakness because he takes advantage of weakness. What's one of the strongest things you can do? No more oil coming out of Russia. Sorry, nobody's taking oil. The only person you're selling oil to is China. Other than that, nobody is buying oil.
Well, again, that would take some real fortitude because Biden, again, every politician, and there is nobody more in the pocket of the Ukraine than the Biden, right? None, no one. But until you hit them with the oil and gas, and maybe you go in and you say, okay, Biden comes out and says, we're going to do some key strikes. And you tell them you have 24 hours. We are going to strike the following
this oil field. Exactly.
Or oil fields or reserves. We're going to burn them. They can't do that because the environmentalists would lose their mind. Right?
100%.
I mean, they would lose their mind. But again, you're taking these strategies off the table.
We got to take a break.
Now, would that be an act of war? That's a different question. But yeah.
We got to take a break. We'll be back. More with Galen Udall from Life South. After this timeout, you're listening to Ocala Talks, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM. This is WOCA, The Source.
Broadcasting from the Ocala International Airport, this is WOCA AM, W242CA FM, Ocala, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.